6:20 right now, p.m. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to Professor Cheng, to Professor Escalante, and let's begin with the first lecture, with the first session. Let me remind you that this will be in charge of Professor Xuan, who is with us today. Dr. Xuan is the Dean of the Academy of Xi Jinping Thought on Socialism with Chinese Characteristics in a New Era. And he has been teaching courses on Marxist studies in Renmin University of China, and he is the author of multiple academic publications. He has been the tutor of several PhD graduates. His lines of investigation focus on Chinese and socialism with Chinese characteristics and Marxism. And I will not enumerate here all of his publications, which are a lot, but he has over 300 published articles. One of his most recent books, How to Be Confident in Theory, has been published and translated to a dozen languages globally. And it has, his investigation and academic work has been acclaimed and awarded with multiple awards and grants, both nationally and internationally. We are talking about one of the lead experts and academicians on Marxism and Xi Jinping's thought. So we are delighted to have you here with us, and you have the floor now. Escalante, Dr. Dussel, and everyone joining today from Latin America, from the Caribbean, and also our dear interpreters who are providing the simultaneous interpreting for today's session. Hello to you all. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It is a pleasure for me to be here today to share some insights on Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. I've been in Latin America very recently. I just came back recently to China because I came back from Buenos Aires, from Argentina, about a month ago. You know, and it's not the first time. Of course, I have been traveling to Latin America for the past 20 years. I think 20 years I had the opportunity first to go to Cuba and other countries in the region. And this trip, this recent trip, led me very profoundly impressed of how of all the advancement and development that the region have seen throughout the past decades. And when I was in Latin America, a lot of people told me, I would really like to go to China. I would really like to get to know China. So I think this is such a great opportunity for me to share with all my Latin American friends about China. And let me clarify something. We have 5 sessions in total. So today, being the first session, I will be talking in general about the global implications of Xi Jinping's thought. Then in the following sessions, I will some of my colleagues will be talking about more specific aspects of Xi Jinping's thought. For example, the Belt and Road Initiative, or for example, the strategies to alleviate poverty. They're going to go into specific subjects. But today, being the first session of the course, I will be giving an overview, a general overview of the topic. So as we all know, China is a socialist country, which is under the leadership of the Communist Party of China, or CPC. And I would like to say it is the strongest and most influential socialist country among the 5 socialist countries that still exist in the world. Let's do a brief comparison about the general state of China. We have a great we have we have a great surface when it comes to the territory of China. We can say that compared to the Latin American region, it's quite large, but also the population of China is quite large, and the economic power and the economic influence and global influence, it is also quite large. So it is really no exaggeration to say that it is the strongest and most influential socialist country alive today. And I would also like to say that China has a certain leadership role within the global South, because there is such eagerness in the global South to better understand the modernization processes that have taken place within China. Now, talking about socialism with Chinese characteristics, let's talk about the CPC. The CPC was founded over a century ago, and in the beginning only had 50 members. Now, 100 years later, we have over 100 million members. 100 million members is easily the population, the entire population of a country. You know, not any country. It could be a highly populated country, maybe like in the top 20 of all countries, you know. So it is quite something that the CPC has now over 100 million members. And I would like to say that the number one mission of the Communist Party of China has always been to look for the happiness of the Chinese people, you know, and to look for the revitalization of the Chinese nation. During these 100 years, the CPC has united and it has led hundreds of millions of people to create, maintain, defend, and develop socialism with Chinese characteristics, achieving a historic transformation from a planned economy to a socialist market economy, and from a limited opening to a comprehensive opening. So throughout these economic reforms and modernization, we have moved the entire population and the people of China from scarcity into a moderately prosperous life. And we are now heading toward a society of comprehensive well-being. So we are talking about two miracles here: the economic stability miracle and the social prosperity miracle, which have transformed the landscape, not only of the Chinese nation, but of the entire global population, you know. So the Communist Party of China is a party guided by Marxism. And throughout its century-long tradition, it has always adhered to the principle of combining Marxism with the concrete realities of China. And according to different stages of development and historical stages of the Chinese nation, this has consolidated into different kinds of doctrines and thoughts. For example, under Mao Zedong, we had Mao Zedong thought. Under Deng Xiaoping, we had Deng Xiaoping theory. We later had theories such as the theory of the three representations and the concept of scientific development. And of course, during the last few years, we have all been focusing on the thought of our president, Xi Jinping. And shall I say that this proves how we can adapt, and we have adapted Marxism to the specific realities of our nation. And who has done this? The party. Because the party has had the wisdom and it has had the ability to combine and consolidate the Marxist theory with the specific development stage of the Chinese nation at a certain time frame. And therefore bringing about the flourishing and the development of our nation. Now, let's talk about Xi Jinping thought. Xi Jinping thought is deeply rooted in China's excellent traditional culture. It is grounded in the realities of our country, but also in the realities of our new era. And it also, I would like to say that Xi Jinping's thought on the new era is the latest achievement that we have in terms of the signification, localization, and nationalization of Marxism with distinctively national and Chinese characteristics. And I would like to share with you that the fifth volume of Xi Jinping's thought on the governance of China has already come out. So as soon as we have the Spanish edition available, we will happily be sharing that with you. So coming back to what I was saying, Xi Jinping's thought has Chinese characteristics, has new era characteristics, and of course, it adheres to the Marxist theory as well. In this way, we can combine Chinese traditional wisdom with current technology and modernization tendencies and do it all in the spirit of Marxist theory so we can open a new dimension for Marxism in the 21st century. And this will allow us to have a global impact on all other developing nations. So Xi's thought was born in China. It has Chinese characteristics, but it can also adapt and develop and evolve according to the new era and to the global tendencies. And it can be adapted and replicated, or it can be learned from other countries, you know? So this is the overall topic of the course, and I would like to give you an overview of what are the main points that we are going to cover today, which are four main aspects. First of all, we will talk about how Marxism, talking about the development of Marxism in general, we'll talk about how Xi's thought has helped open a new field of development for Marxism in the 21st century. Secondly, we will talk about how Xi's thought has contributed with new vitality and new content to global socialism. In third place, we will talk about some perspectives on modernization. How is it that Xi's thought has expanded the pathways for developing countries to advance towards modernization? In fourth place, we will talk about what are the contributions of Xi's thought and Chinese wisdom to solutions that are able to address global challenges, what we call the Chinese solution or the China solution. And if we have some time left, we can expand on any of these topics in the Q&A section. Let's begin with the first part. New horizons for the development of Marxism in the 21st century. What do we mean by this? Well, as we all know, Marxism emerged in the decade of 1840, in the 1840s. So we're talking about 180 years, more than 180 years ago. Now, over the course of these 180 years, Marxism has spread from Europe to the entire world, exerting a profound and lasting influence on the progress of human society. As far as I'm concerned, in Latin America, all over Latin America, there are several communist parties. And these communist parties were founded in the 1920s, maybe. So I shall say very close in time to the foundation of the Communist Party of China. So by this, I mean in Latin America, we can talk about a Marxist territory as well. Latin America is a region, and Latin America and the Caribbean is a region that has embraced Marxist ideas as well, to a certain extent. And of course, this comes with great opportunities, but also with great challenges. So, for example, in the 18th edition of the National Party's Congress, which was led primarily by our comrade Xi Jinping, the leaders of the party have upheld theoretical innovation grounded in practice, opening up new horizons for the development of Marxism in the 21st century. So, Xi's thought in the new era has opened up this new development, stage. And what do I mean by that? Let's break it down in 4 points. First of all, President Xi Jinping, throughout his various publications, through several of his speeches, he has analyzed the theoretical characteristics of Marxism. So he asks us, how can we sustain, maintain, and develop Marxism? I think these questions are questions that any proletariat organization, any communist party in the world must ask themselves and come up with an answer to. In the case of President Xi Jinping, he has developed these 4 points. First of all, Marxism is a scientific theory that reveals the laws of human nature and of human societal development. So, as we know, and as comrade Xi Jinping says, Marx created the materialist conception of history and the theory of surplus value, revealing the general laws of the development of human society, as well as the specific laws of the operation of capitalism. He showed a path for humanity to leap from the realm of necessity to the realm of freedom. Now, Marxism is a theory of the people, right? It's a theory of the people. And here we come to the second point. Marxism was the first, the emergence of Marxism in the world was the first time that there was a system of thought created aimed at the emancipation of the people. Yeah. With the explicit purpose of creating an equal and free society for everyone. Now, why does Marxism has so many followers in the world? Well, if we see the Communist Manifesto, which is a little booklet that has been published in uncountable nations and it has been translated to uncountable languages, we can see just this little booklet is very popular because it really connects with peoples all over the world. Now, the third point that comrade Xi Jinping talks about when analyzing the characteristics of Marxism, he says Marxism is a theory of practice that guides the action of the people to change the world. It's a powerful force for the people to understand the world and transform the world. Since last century, the Communist Party of China has always upheld the spirit of Marxism in leading the Chinese nation. So it is a sort of spiritual force as well, of sorts. Now, the fourth point is that Marxism is an open theory that is in constant development, always remaining at the forefront of evolution and advancement according to the times. So, according to President Xi, the story of development of Marxism is the story of how is really the story of Marx, of Engels, and their successors, and everyone who have continuously developed their theories in accordance with the era, in accordance with practice, and in accordance with advancement of knowledge, constantly absorbing the achievements of all human thought and culture to enrich their own ideas. And I think we can see this in Latin America as well, because there have been enormous contributions to Marxist theory coming from different places of Latin America. Now, let's sum it up. Why has Xi Jinping's thought opened new avenues of development for Marxism in the 21st century? Well, because it has analyzed and analyzed the key theoretical characteristics of Marxism, and it has integrated them with the specificity of a nation and the current era, the development of the current era. Now, let's move on to the next section, right? Let's talk about the value of Marxism. Now, no other theory has reached the level of Marxism, and no other doctrine has reached the impact, such a large impact over the whole world, such as Marxism has had. So I think this is a clear reflection of the vitality and the current status of Marxism in the 21st century. And it still lies an irreplaceable tool for human transformation. Let me adjust the a little bit the screen, and we'll come back to the content. So, as we were saying, Marxism plays an irreplaceable role in world progress and social advancement. Now, there are some people in academia that still believe that Marxism was a 19th century popular doctrine or like idea, and then it just stayed there and it hasn't advanced ever since. But this is an incorrect way of looking at it. This is an incorrect approach, because Marxism is not obsolete. Is not obsolete, and the victory, the eventual victory of socialism over capitalism is also not an obsolete idea. It is a quite current idea. Now, this is part of the great value of Xi Jinping's reflections on Marxism, that it reveals what is the secret to keep sustaining and maintaining Marxism in the 21st century. Now, Comrade Xi Jinping also explains some of the main contents that we have to take into account when adhering and developing Marxism. He has said, it is necessary to learn and practice, as well as adhere to the development of Marx's ideas on the laws of human social development, the position of the people, productive forces, and production relations, people's democracy, cultural constructions, social constructions, and the relationship between humanity and nature, world history, and the construction of the Marxist Party. These are all areas of knowledge in which we can apply and adhere to Marxist ideas. So as we can see, these ideas are present across multiple domains: society, economy, politics, culture, and everything can be brought up and is extremely intertwined with Marxist thought. So, standing where we are right now in the present, how can we first approach and start studying Marxism? Well, President Xi has showed us a path, a way to do this. And here I would like to address um, the fourth point, which is President Xi has proposed specific requirements for enriching and developing contemporary Chinese Marxism in 21st century. So how can we learn and develop these theories and these doctrines in a new era? Well, we have some requirements as President Xi has established here. First of all, we need to study the basic theories of Marxism and master its perspectives, its methods. For example, historic materialism, dialectic materialism, you know. This is a first requirement. The second requirement is we need to uphold a firm stance in favor of the people and adhere to the concept of the people-centered development. This is to say, we need to orient ourselves towards the interest of the proletarian, from the proletariat class and the masses, and be guided by them in our pursuit of human progress. Thirdly, we must strengthen the interpretation and analysis of the classical text of Marxism and deepen the study of its basic theory in order to fully understand its ideas and methods regarding the laws of the world, society, and nature. Now, fourthly, we must continue to deepen the study of the laws governing the development of human society, providing a reasonable explanation for the development and changes in the current world, and proposing viable solutions to the problems affecting the future and our shared future. And this is a very important point that I would like to talk about with Dr. Dussel later, because we are in an unprecedented time of change. And we have global challenges surrounding us all over. And it is of the utmost importance that we come together and think of innovative solutions and innovative ways of addressing these global challenges. In this way, we can all contribute to a better future for human beings and for the planet itself. Of course, we are talking about the viable solutions and planified courses of action. And in order to achieve this, we need to also go deeper into our study of capitalism itself and the laws that govern capitalism, and what are the historic processes that govern the development of capitalism. According to my understanding of Latin America, capitalism, socialism, and all other systems and ideologies and theories have been tested in Latin America. And they have been tested by different kinds of parties, different kinds of political parties, not only communist parties, not only Marxist parties, but all sorts of parties in Latin America have implemented all sorts of solutions and also sorts of development methods. So this is something that we have to reflect about. Now, coming back to the points posited by President Xi Jinping, we must continue to deepen the study of the laws governing the construction of socialism, promoting the advancement of socialism toward overcoming capitalism. This is something that has been posited by President Xi Jinping, talking about the Chinese nation, but I believe this is an important point that can be posited as well by all leaders of communist political parties all over the world, talking to their comrades and to their fellow men and women within their organizations. Now let's move on to the second to the second big section of my presentation, which has to do with injecting new vitality into world socialism. So we have talked about Marxism in theory, the Marxist doctrine. Now let's talk about world socialism. This has to do with establishing a better system than capitalism, which has been the dream of many good men and women throughout history, right? Now, as you know, there has been a long history of development of socialism in the world. It doesn't start with Marx and Engels. There had been previous versions of socialism that had been um, developed and that had been presented by different thinkers and by different people. But Marx and Engels came up with scientific socialism, right? They came up with scientific socialism, which replaced the utopian socialism that had been present before them. And this is a very important achievement because it allows us to go from to take socialism from utopia to science, right? So it's scientific socialism, as posited by Marx and Engels, leads us into the way of scientific practice, of scientific study of social reality, not only of ideology or not only of philosophy, you know. Now, as we all know, when we had the Soviet Revolution happening in Russia, that was also the beginning of a new stage of socialism, world socialism. But even with that new development, throughout the 20th century, socialism experienced great challenges and great dangers. You know, we all know what happened with Eastern Europe and what happened after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and then that was a big blow to world socialism. And now we have a few survivors. We have Cuba, we have North Korea, we have China, and so these are just just 5 countries, just a very number of countries. If we compare it to the absolute number of countries that exist in the world, that we're talking about more than 190 countries, like, and so 5 countries are a very little, and so we cannot say that world socialism has go unchallenged or has go without its setbacks. Now, in the current world, socialism still faces many challenges. Developed countries, industrialized countries from the West, they have posed challenges to socialism manifested in 2 ways, in 2 aspects. On one hand, developed capitalist countries in the West, because of their long development history, they have maintained a position of advantage in areas such as economy and technology, which has led a minority within their own countries to question the socialist systems and the viability of socialist systems. On the other hand, although the transformation of Eastern Europe and the end of the Cold War marked a significant change, developed capitalist countries in the West have not abandoned the Cold War mentality. They continue to view socialism in China as a serious threat to global capitalism. Therefore, a lot of politicians in developed capitalist countries still maintain this Cold War mentality, and they still insist in forming alliances, in creating conflicts, in having this them versus us mentality. And they are trying to export these systems of beliefs and these ideologies to the rest of the world so they can subvert the success of socialist systems such as the one in China. But let me tell you, socialism with Chinese characteristics was born was born in this context, was born in this context of global challenges for world socialism. So if we talk about global implications of socialism with Chinese characteristics, we can understand then how, first of all, the global context of world socialism plays a key role in understanding the origins of socialism with Chinese characteristics. Now, I would like to say that our President Xi Jinping has emphasized that that in a global context where world socialism is in a stage of decline, China has firmly raised the banner of scientific socialism. Now, President Xi emphasizes that socialism has not come to an end and will not come to an end. Socialism remains a path to humanity's promising future, and the replacement of capitalism by socialism remains a fundamental law of human social development. So, therefore, the opening of the path of socialism with Chinese characteristics has successfully established in the most populous country in the world a correct and highly realistic and viable path for socialism. And this has revitalized scientific socialism in the 21st century. It is something quite incredible. Why? Because it is something that has brought to us a viable pathway to socialism. And it has done it in the most populated country, you know? So after the collapse of the Soviet Union, there's a lot of people that were saying that socialism has failed, it's the end. But we can see it is not so. It is not so because China stands strong, and China is advancing. So we can say that a good percentage of the world population is on the path to socialism, on the socialist path still. Now, I would also like to say that Xi's thought really responds, is a deep response, an important response to the questions of our era, of the major issues of the era. These are very important issues for him. So my Latin American friends, if you have read the 4 volumes of Xi's thought on the global governance and the governance of China, you will know that Xi's thought answers 3 fundamental questions. First of all, what kind of socialism with Chinese characteristics we must develop? Second, what kind of modern, strong socialist country do we want to build? Third, what kind of Marxist party can stay in power for a long time and how to achieve this? And this is the significance. Answering these 3 questions that I have posed is the significance of Xi Jinping's thought for the new era. Now, let's go to the first question. What kind of socialism with Chinese characteristics can we build? Should we build? Well, first of all, Xi Jinping has said that socialism with Chinese characteristics is a dialectical unit of the logic of scientific socialism and the historical logic of the development of Chinese society. It is rooted in Chinese soil, it reflects the aspirations of the Chinese people, and it adapts to the requirements of China's development and progress and the demands of the current era. So there it is. That's the answer to the first question. And we can see how the implications of this fundamental doctrine has allowed for tremendous levels of modernization in such a large and highly populated country. I believe is quite miraculous, to be honest. And it is a great way of contributing to the advancement of the human endeavors at the global level and at the historical level, and to lead us towards a better future. Me personally, I highly envy and I admire Latin America because you have such abundant resources and such a beautiful natural environment. So I am confident that if Latin America can find its own pathway for modernization, then you can also achieve tremendous levels of modernization and development. And I think Xi Jinping's thought for a new era and its addition and its adhering to socialism with Chinese characteristics are a wonderful tool and a wonderful system and a wonderful mechanism that you can draw lessons from and that you can learn from and use for finding your own path towards development. Now talking about the modernization of talking about the human society as we were at the global state. Xi Jinping has emphasized that the characteristics of our socialism, what are these characteristics and what are the advantages? Well, basically, he has said that the socialist system with Chinese characteristics is based on organically combining the fundamental political system, the basic political system, the basic economic system, and other specific systems and mechanisms, as well as organically combining national level democracy with grassroots democracy. It also organically combines the leadership of the party, the leadership of the people, and the rule of law. This system is suited for China's national conditions, and it's been the key to our success. As it was stated in the fourth plenary session of the 19th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, there have been 13 notable advantages of the socialist system with Chinese characteristics, and there has been a number of specific institutional arrangements that have been put forward to improve and develop the socialist system with Chinese characteristics in the new era. So my academic friends of Latin America, if you want to get to know more about China, other than the most basic realities, if you want to get to know the realities of the party, the fruits of the opening and the reform, you also need to get to know our legal institutions, our political institutions. And, with the success of the opening up, as an example, I think we can have a better understanding and a better way of approaching the way these national institutions bring about tangible results. For example, for controlling the pandemic, for alleviating poverty. Overall, for providing a Chinese solution for humanity's exploration of a better social system. And that is why Xi Jinping's thought in the new era has a lot of implications, and very important implications and contributions, because it contributes with new content and renovated energy to world socialism. Now, let's go to the third section of the presentation, which is the way Xi's thought has expanded the pathways for developing countries to move towards modernization. So, in order to achieve modernization, which is it's the unavoidable path for developing countries all across the world, and for all countries all across the world, really. But every country has a different level of modernization. And this has to do with its national realities, with its history, with its culture, with its traditions, with its ideology. So what this means is every country started its modernization process at a different point in history and with different conditions. So as per my knowledge of Latin America, there have been several countries in Latin America that started their modernization processes before China. And there are a lot of countries who have attained modernization levels even higher than China. But the modernization task still there. It's an unfinished task. It's an unfinished process. So let me be clear about this. When it comes about modernization, Chinese people didn't start it. Okay, Chinese people was a very left behind. Was a very it was a country with a very low level of modernization. And then we began a, a, a very fast, a very major modernization process and achieved outstanding results within very short amounts of time. So this is why our president Xi Jinping has stated that China's modernization represents an unprecedented transformation in human history. Achieving it means that a population larger than the combined total of all current developed countries will enter the modernization process. So since the new China was established, it's been already 70 years. Since the opening up, it's been already 40 years, almost 50 years, you know. So throughout these decades, we have found our own pathway to modernization. So at the 18th National Congress, President Xi talked about how there are some points that are important to talk about when talking about the Chinese pathway to modernization. First of all, the modernization of developing countries is fundamentally different from the modernization of Western developed countries. So Western countries, Western developed countries, they have followed a chain-like development process, so to speak, a serial development process. So what I mean by this is industrialization, urbanization, agricultural modernization, and informatization, they developed in sequence, one after the other, one after the other. And they reached their current level after more than 200 years. But the Chinese case is very different. China's modernization is a parallel process. Parallel. It happens simultaneously, right? So industrialization, informatization, urbanization, and agricultural modernization, they developed at the same time. And we are using this simultaneous force to make up for the 200 years that we have lost. So what this means is that the developing countries, in their pathway to modernity, they face challenges which are even harder than those that the developed Western countries faced in their time. But China has proved, has it's living proof that any developing country can accelerate, can enter the pathway of accelerated modernization. However, there is not a unique formula. There is not a unique modernization way that works for all, but you have to choose that which better adapts to the national realities of your nation. So this is what it's all about. We're talking about a modernization pathway that adapts to your own national conditions. Now, we know that in the global south, a lot of countries had to adopt the Western, after the end of the Cold War, a lot of global south countries have to adopt the Western model. The Western model. And this led to a lot of conflicts, even wars, economic crises, political crises, and which some of which still are we are still living through its effects even today, you know. And this happened all over the world, even also in Africa. So what does this mean? This means that the modernization experience of other countries, we can take it as a reference, but we cannot copy paste. We cannot copy paste entirely. In the 21st century, the experience of developing countries shows that in order for developing countries to get out of the conundrum that dictates that backward countries will be always at the mercy of others, in order to escape this, these countries must formulate realistic strategies and find the path suited to their national conditions, to their own national conditions. Now this leads us to the next question. Choosing the appropriate path of modernization, the one that is better suited for your country, it's an enormous challenge. It's a significant challenge. The reason why China chose its own path was because we have an outstanding cultural tradition. We have specific historic conditions that led us to choose the pathway that we chose. This is why Xi Jinping pointed out the path of socialism with Chinese characteristics is a historical choice made after the Chinese people tried all other forms of saving the country since 1840, especially after the Sino-Japanese War of 1894, and encountered failures in every attempt. It is a fundamental achievement obtained by the Communist Party of China and the people after great difficulties and sacrifices. So what this means is, in order for a country to choose an appropriate way to modernization and development, it has to take into account its own historical, cultural, and national conditions. And this is a very complex process that will be long, will be hard, and will require a lot of effort and often great sacrifices. Now, in this unprecedented change era, the global community, it is at a crossroads in which it has to decide where is it gonna be, what pathway is it gonna take, what's gonna be the road that's gonna go down towards the future. And this leads us to the next point, the fourth point, which is the distinctive characteristics of China's modernization path. Dr. Dussel also mentioned a while ago that Dr. Chan Tongkang visited UNAM not too long ago and performed an introductory sessions on the advantages of Chinese modernization. And now the the friends that are, I'm gonna repeat some of Chan Tong-kan's lecture because I'm sure a lot of the audience members which were not present at Chan Tong-kan's lecture will appreciate listening to this part. So President Xi Jinping has stated that China's path to modernization has distinctive characteristics and is a people-centered path that places the interest of the people above all else. This teaches developing countries that only by focusing on the people, maintaining their leading role, and harnessing the innovative spirit of the masses, can modernization gain inexhaustible energy and achieve new advances. So China's path to modernization has the people at the center, has the people as the priority, and an this is an inspiration really. This kind of vision is an inspiration to many countries because only by focusing on the people and putting the people's interest in the first place, that's the only way to achieve true modernization. And this is our mission. And this is really something that is in our veins and it's in the nature of our party because we have always been a party that puts the people at the center. Now, secondly, China's path to modernization is a path of reform and innovation. And when we talk about innovation, we talk about innovation in theory, innovation in practice, innovation, innovation. Is a it's an everlasting source of inspiration and of betterment and evolution throughout the historical process of modernization, especially nowadays in the age of artificial intelligence and in the age of digitalization. Innovation is at the center of the stage. Now, thirdly, China's path to modernization develops following an exponential curve, you know, and we can see how there's been a trial examples of trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. Some things will work, some things will not work, but if developing countries want to achieve true modernization, they need to work fast, they need to work in a transcendental way, they need to work in an exponential way. And this is what China has done. And I do believe this can be an inspiration for other developing countries to choose a similar pathway to development. And in the fourth place, China's path to modernization is an open path. It's an open path that looks for modernization within openness, within the process of opening up. The opening up has always been a fundamental part since its inception of the Chinese pathway to modernization. And of course, in the process, what does opening up mean? What does being open mean? Well, it means bringing about all the other involved parties in the global community to benefit and interact and be part of China's modernization pathway. So in the process of modernization, we can benefit others as well. And in this way, China has always wanted to have an important role in the international community. And President Xi has emphasized that the active participation of China in the international community is a key element in the Chinese route to modernization. So, from the perspective of the process of human modernization, Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era offers a new option for countries and nations seeking to accelerate their development while maintaining their independence. Additionally, it has contributed Chinese wisdom and solutions to address global challenges. So, we can talk about an alternative path. We can now talk about an alternative path to traditional capitalist path that is very different from the traditional, from the mainstream Western vision and the Western path. That is an alternative. The Chinese way is an alternative path for all the developed nations in the world to be able to choose from. And talking about global implications, let's talk about how Xi's thought has contributed Chinese wisdom and solutions to solving human problems. We only have one planet Earth. It's our home, and all of countries in the world are in the same planet. Well, this planet is living through an unprecedented change era. Is living through a time with unprecedented changes that is still under development. We're still living through a new technological revolution. We are living through a restructuring of global powers. However, the main tendency that we must uphold is that of peaceful development, of peaceful cooperation, and of mutual benefit. Because now more than ever, every country has a certain level of interdependence and interconnection with all the other countries. So now more than ever, we need to stand united. We cannot be thinking separately from each other. Now, but oh, the contradictions. There's so many contradictions that we're living through. In this era in which we need to be united, in which we need to be interconnected, in which we need to be on the road to peaceful development, we nevertheless see that the reemergence of conflict, of war, of alliances is more present than ever. And these are threatening elements, and these are challenges for the peaceful cooperation and the peaceful development of mankind, of humankind. So that is why we say humans are at the crossroads right now. The humankind is at the crossroads right now. So what is it gonna be? Cooperation or confrontation? What is it gonna be? Openness or closure? What is it gonna be? Mutual benefit or zero-sum games? How we respond to these questions affects the interest of every country and the collective future of humanity. Well, Xi Jinping's thought has provided a profound response to this question, to the most important question to the era, which is what is happening in the world and what should we do about it? Well, Xi's thought has provided new ideas, thoughts, and strategies regarding international issues, and that is why it holds significant global relevance. First of all, Xi's thought emphasizes the importance of always upholding the banner of peaceful development and emphasizes the unwavering pursuit of the path of a peaceful development. So she asks us, what is the dominant trend in the world today? The answer for Comrade Xi Jinping is clear: peace, development, cooperation, and mutual benefit. China does not agree with the outdated logic that a strong country must be a dominant country, you know? And then what can we say about all these persons, all these people, all these actors that for a while now have been fearing the so-called Chinese menace, that have been always talking about whether China, uh, as it developed in the world, would it they were afraid of whether China would seek to be a dominant country. Well, we say to them, no. We say to them, China has always and will always upheld the and uphold the peaceful development pathway. China will never sacrifice other countries in order to pursue its own interest, and it also will never renounce its own legitimate rights. So I remember once in Brazil, I was at a ranch and there were like 4,000 cows that were being grown for beef. And even before they started the growing process, they had already signed an export contract for exporting all of those cows into China. So this is an example of how the Chinese market is now an important market for the Latin American economies, and the economic cooperation and trade cooperation between our regions will be of increasing significance in the future. Now, let's talk about uh, the Belt and Road Initiative. Yeah. So, what is the Belt and Road Initiative? Well, it is undoubtedly a path towards resource sharing, common prosperity, and joint development. Since its proposal, it has received positive response from all over the world, and its main objective is that all parties involved can work together in order to grow and develop together and benefit together, and therefore advance towards a joint building of a community of shared future for mankind, for humanity. So this Belt and Road Initiative has received a positive response from over 160 countries and regions and international institutions. And even though the Belt and Road Initiative has originated in China, it belongs to the entire world. Now, according to the World Bank, the Belt and Road Initiative will enable 7.6 million people in participating countries to escape extreme poverty and 32 million to overcome moderate poverty. Additionally, trade between participating countries is expected to grow by 2.8 to 9.7%. Global trade to increase by 1.7 to 6.2%, and global income to grow by 0.7% to 2.9%. Let me tell you, I was in Africa last year and I visited a couple of places, and I realized that the Belt and Road Initiative has great popularity within the African countries. I still have 3 points to explore with you. Now, the third point, let me talk about what Xi Jinping has said. No country can stand alone in overcoming humanity's shared challenges. You know, no country can become an isolated island. No country can confront the various challenges facing humanity on its own. So China will always hold high the banner of peace, development, cooperation, and mutual benefit. So China can steadily continue to develop friendly cooperation with all countries, yeah, on the basis of the principles of peaceful coexistence, and it will always actively develop global partnership relations, expand areas of common interest with countries, several countries, continuously improve its comprehensive, multidimensional, and layered diplomatic strategy, and create a network of friends that spans the entire world. Also, China actively advocates and practices multilateralism, upholds multilateralism and the rules-based international order, opposes protectionism and unilateralism, and promotes international cooperation to address major challenges. Now, in fourth place, Comrade Xi has stated that we must advocate for active participation in the leadership of reform and the construction of the global governance system. And this is a matter that concerns the entire global community. We must adhere to the principles of consultation, cooperation, and shared benefits, transform proposals to reform of the global governance system into a consensus among all parties, and take concerted action. So, talking about global governance, we must remember that global South countries, such as China and Latin American countries, need to work together. And this is the vision of the Communist Party of China, and has always been the vision of the Communist Party of China. We need to think globally. We need to build a system of consultation, of joint building, of mutual benefits. And in this way, we can responsibly take place in the global reforms that need to take place in order to jointly advance this common project that we call humanity. In this way, China will promote innovation in global governance concepts and always protect the participation and representation of global South countries. Yes. Likewise, China will continue to explore the resonance points between its cultural heritage and its traditional Chinese wisdom, and the kind of solutions that the challenges of this new era puts in front of us and demands of us to take up front. Now, finally, Comrade Xi Jinping has said that we must advocate for the construction of a world of lasting peace, universal security, shared prosperity, with openness, inclusiveness, and beauty. So, as we all know, Xi's thought has given us this idea of building a community of shared future for whole humanity. This means we all need to work together in order to achieve this goal. And what does building this community of shared future mean? Well, I think this is a highly popular idea, first of all. It's very popular, it's very well received, and it has had a long-lasting and profound impact all over the world, first of all, I must say. But what does it mean? Well, in the political sphere, it means promoting mutual respect and equal consultation. You know, advocating for a new form of relations between countries based on dialogue rather than confrontation, and on partnership rather than alliances. In the security domain, it means promoting resolving disputes through dialogue and addressing differences through consultation. And of course, opposing all forms of terrorism. In the economic sphere, It advocates mutual cooperation, liberalization and facilitation of trade and investment, driving economic globalization, and achieving a more inclusive, equitable, balanced, and mutually beneficial development. In the cultural sphere, it promotes respect for the diversity of world civilizations. It promotes overcoming barriers through cultural exchange and resolving conflicts through mutual learning, as well as fostering peaceful coexistence among civilizations. And in the ecological sphere, it advocates an eco-friendly approach, and to cooperate to address climate change and protect the Earth, our home country, our home planet. So these are some of the key concepts of the profound response that President Xi Jinping has to the most concerning and most pressing questions of our era. And this is why it has been received with such open arms by the international community and by academics and policymakers alike throughout the entire global community. And we sincerely hope that the Chinese experience and the Chinese practice can serve as a study model. But definitely there are a lot of specific implications included in this Chinese experience that we haven't expanded upon today. And we need to expand upon each of those, because we need to stop living in this world in which the Chinese experience is somewhat mysterious to the inhabitants of the Latin American and Caribbean regions, and vice versa. We need to bring up these ideas about, share these experiences, share the specificities of what's happening on both of our regions, and then through a better and richer understanding, become closer to each other. Not only the generalities, but also the specificities and the specific things that we can implement in our own countries. And through the conversations I've had with several Latin American friends, I realized that bilateral understanding and bilateral knowledge, it's somewhat there at the same level. But what I mean is that we need to share what each of us has with the other one. So we only had an hour today to talk a little bit about the evolution of Xi's thought and about some of the key characteristics. And this time is very limited. We don't have enough time to expand on the specifics for a first session. But for a first session, I really hope I was able to provide with an outline, with a general overview of what you can expect in the following sessions. And I really sincerely hope all of you Latin American friends and Professor Dussel and Professor Escalante and everyone present can come to China, and we will receive you with open arms and be happy to engage in friendly exchange once you're there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Xuan. We are very thankful to you for your time, and we will be having the video in the following days. And this is the first session out of 5 sessions. So, of course, we have had a lot of questions from the audience, and a lot of them we will be able to address specifically because they are directly related to some of the specific topics that will be covered in the following sessions. So thank you so much for your presentations, and we really like the picture of the mural painting by Diego Rivera that you put in your presentation. So thank you so much. And so, Dr. Xuan, I would like to do 2 rounds of questions, if that's okay. And I'm gonna choose some questions that are directly related to what we have been talking about today and what you have presented us today. Let me remind to all of the members of the audience that Dr. Xuan is the director of the Academic Research Center for Xi Jinping's thought in the Renmin University of China. So So, like to sum up hundreds of questions that we have here. First of all, let me say congratulations for a magnificent presentation. And of course, later I would very much like to understand whether some of your publications are available in Spanish as well, and if we can read in Spanish some of your published work, either in English or in Spanish, it would be very interesting, I think, for our audience. Let's begin right now with a first round of questions, and then we can move on. So, first question: in your opinion, what would be the main differences and similarities between Mao Zedong's thought, Deng Xiaoping's thought, and Xi Jinping's thought? I know this question allows us to have a very robust exchange of ideas, and you could provide a whole lecture of its own by just answering it. But to keep it light, to keep it concise, what could you say about these similarities or differences between the thoughts of these three great leaders in Chinese history? Now, for some areas of Marxism, Leninism, and also of Trotskyism, international socialism is a necessity, is seen as a necessity, and class struggle plays a very relevant role in this. So, from the perspective of Xi Jinping's thought, what is the relevance of international socialism and of class struggle? And finally, the third question: what is the role that private capital plays in the recent development of China? We have talked about the importance of the party, the importance of the state. Now, what is the role of the private capital, of private investment, and what are the tensions between the party and private capital? That would be a third question for you for this first round of questions. And let me remind you, Dr. Chin, let's try to speak slowly because our interpreters have done a fantastic work today and they are most surely exhausted. Uh, thank you. Thank you very much to the interpreters. And if the interpreter is in China, I can take her, I can buy her lunch, but she's in Mexico. All right. So, so about these three questions. Well, these are very interesting questions that definitely caught the attention of our Latin American friends. And of course, there must be more questions, but let me do a brief answer to these questions. First of all, the the differences and the similarities between the theories and thought of Deng Xiaoping and Xi. Well, first of all, Mao Zedong's thought and Deng Xiaoping's thought and the theory of the three representatives and Xi Jinping's thought, all of those theories belong to the nationalization of Marxism in China. All of these can be understood within Marxism, but they have variations. They have the same position, the same methodology, the same basic principles. Because we always say within the party that we have inherited theories and we have abundant and we have added new theories on the basis of the theoretical corpus that we have inherited. So they follow the same thread. But then what is the difference? The difference is these these thoughts, these doctrines were born under different contexts, within different contexts, and they faced different challenges because they correspond to different eras. So, of course, they led to the development of different opinions. For example, Mao Zedong's thought, it came about during a war period. You know, we're talking about China as a semi-colonized country, semi-colonial nation, you know. So the main priorities at that point were the national emancipation, you know, the emancipation of the Chinese people from the foreign invaders. So therefore, Mao Zedong developed his theory and his line of thought, combining and based upon the national characteristics of the country at that point. Now, if we talk about Deng Xiaoping's thought, then the question was different. The priority was, what is the socialist path that China must follow, and how can we achieve it? And when we talk about Xi Jinping's thought, this has to do more with reform. So Xi's thought was born in a very specific time frame, within a time facing unprecedented changes worldwide, in which we had domestic and international contradictions, you know. But what's the main contradiction? That the people's needs are ever growing within China, but the production capabilities haven't quite caught up, are not catching up with the demand, with the people's needs and demands. That is the main challenge that Xi thought must address when talking about the domestic politics. So that those would be the differences and the similarities. Now, for the second question, Dr. Dussel, you talk about Marxism, Leninism, Trotskyism, class struggle, international socialism. Well, let me say something about that. Going into the 21st century, the Communist Party of China emphasizes the importance of harmony, of building a harmonious society, a world full of harmony. So we need to uphold an equilibrium between economic development, between political stability, and emphasize the importance of building a home for all nations worldwide, in which everyone can get benefited and advance its own production capabilities. So everyone can participate and benefit from the socialist advancement pathway. So let me say we have never denied the class struggle theory of Marxism. Actually, Marxism poses this class struggle, this concept, and President Xi Jinping has talked about this and said that we need to address this class struggle in the new era, because this class struggle in the new era does not only limit within classes, is not limited to classes within one nation, but it expands beyond the borders of nation, beyond national borders, and it goes to the level of the struggle between capitalism and socialism. Now, as for the relation between capitalism and socialism, President Xi has emphasized that on one side, we must have cooperation with capitalistic countries, but on the other side, we must maintain the struggle against capitalism. So this is a fundamental contradiction that we need to address. Yeah. So our position will continue to be a firm stance for advocating for long-term cooperation, and at the same time long-term struggle. That would be the answer to your second question. And about the third question about private property and the private factors within the economic development. I think in recent years, I think there have been some misunderstandings. There have been some misunderstandings about the development of private economical elements or private economic sectors in China. Let me clarify something. Ever since the opening up of China, the private industry and the private sector in China has played a key role in exponentially elevating the economic level of the country, in providing employment for a lot of people, in alleviating poverty, and currently we can say that the private economic sector, the non-public economic sector, is a very important part of the socialist market economy. And it is a fundamental achievement of our opening up policy. Now, in second place, the Communist Party of China has never said that we will limit the development of non-public entities, but we will maintain two principles. We will continue to uphold the importance of the public sector, and at the same time respect and allow for the flourishing of the private sector. So we can develop both. We can develop them both. So, this is a little misunderstanding sometimes in the media, that people think that the Chinese government limits the private sector, and this is not true. This is not true. Now, strictly speaking, the border between private economy and public economy in China, it's becoming blurry. It's in an ever-changing era. Both sectors, private and public sectors, they're closely connected, they're intertwined, they have mixed models of creation, innovation, and development. So, it's not as simple, it's not as straightforward as saying this is private, this is public. They actually work together in synergy. And this is why. But one thing is true. One thing is true. Our principle is to have a public sector as the head, as the choice maker. Yeah. So as the leading factor. And then under the leadership of the public sector, we can develop as well, and we can let the private sector flourish, And this is not only words. This is all in the law. This is all within our legal system, within the Chinese law. It says we will be unstoppable in developing both the economy, in developing both the public sector of the economy and also in developing the private sector of the economy. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. I think we are about the within time. We're close to 8, and we do not want to overstep. We don't want to take more of your time that you have so kindly provided for us. So 2 more questions. Talking about socialism with Chinese characteristics and socialist market economy. These 2 concepts sound very counterintuitive for a lot of people who may not be too familiar with China. So could you expand on those 2 concepts? And the second question is, from a perspective rooted in the West, a lot of people in the West say China is a capitalist success, and that the Chinese development could have not taken place, and it might not be able to continue without its capitalist connections, so to speak. So what would you say to that? Yeah, let me answer these questions. So let me talk about the first of all about the market economy and its relationship with socialism. We've been talking about this ever since Deng Xiaoping proposed the socialist market economy. And what we did was to move from a planified economy to a socialist market economy. And this has been one of the great Chinese achievements and the great experiences of China. And um, some Western analysts may have a different idea, and they might think this is a contradiction, but actually we have engraved the socialist market economy within our institutional system and within our institutional framework. And this is completely possible and completely achievable. It is just a way of distributing resources. And this is something that can be applied by both I mean, a market economy can be applied. It's just a way of distributing resources, and it can be applied both by capitalist systems and capitalist states and by socialist states. So if a socialist state applies it, it's a socialist market economy. If a capitalist state applies it, it's a capitalist market economy. Now, in our case, we have been able to by having this socialist market economy, this has allowed us to have a more equitable and fair distribution of goods and resources. But also, um, this is where the key part, the key role that this public sector plays comes into account. So obviously, it is very different to talk about a socialist market economy where the public sector is at the head and the public sector takes the lead of the decisions than to talk about a capitalist market economy in which, well, we all know it works very differently. So definitely, I think we need to have more analysts and more works published about the success of the Chinese case. So these kinds of misunderstandings are less and less frequent in the future, and this is something that we all have to contribute to. Now, regarding the second question, a lot of people have asked me this. Well, is China really a socialist country? Isn't it a capitalist country now? Well, let me tell you something. How can we determine whether the country is socialist or capitalist? Well, not only look at the economic structure changes, we need to look at a lot of factors. We need to look at a lot of factors, at the comprehensive factors, at the fundamental factors. So in China, we believe that by upholding Marxism as the leading theory of our political and social practice is how we have achieved the modernization and the revitalization of the Chinese people. Also, we believe that by prioritizing and by putting at the center the people, by putting the people at the center and upholding its central role in social advancement, that is how we have been able to achieve a harmonious society. So these two are very important factors that differentiate China from other systems and talk about its socialist values. Now, let me ask you, are there any countries when that are there any countries that haven't reached an economic development that is not even that has not achieved productivity levels that are considered to be advanced, and nevertheless is focusing so much of its resources and efforts in alleviating poverty? I believe we are a unique case. I think the Chinese nation and the Chinese state, under the leadership of the Communist Party, has brought so many people out of poverty at the same time as achieving its own economic development. This can only be explained through the lens of socialist and Marxist theory, and of a nation with a socialist conviction and committed to a socialist agenda. So I think, so of course, we don't want any other country in the world to close the door to China. We don't want that. They don't want that. And we are a driving force in the world right now. We have 1.4 billion people. We have a population of 1.4 billion people. This is the same as saying the world population in the 1900s. So, we need to get an idea of what China represents, the scale of China as a nation, as an economy. So of course, such an important scale, such a big nation with such a long history, we will never deliver our destiny. We will never put our fate and our destiny in the hands of others. We will always have it under the leadership of our own people, of our own nation, which are fundamentally a socialist nation, guiding a Chinese people. So by doing this, we will continue to work with all other nations and all other peoples around the world to create a better China and a better world. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doctor. We are deeply grateful for your time, and congratulations to you for your clarity and your your achievements, of course, and for directing such an important institution as it is the Academy of Xi Jinping's thought in the Renmin University of China. So thank you so much, and to everyone who joined today, to everyone in the audience, I will ask for you to have some patience. This is the very first session. We will have 4 more. You need to enter the portal and register for the following session so you can connect. And in the following days, we will be uploading these live recordings, so they are available to anyone that wants to see them in the future. Thank you so much, and have a great night, everyone, and have a great morning in Beijing. Thank you so much, Doctor, and I hope to see everyone in Beijing in the future. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to the interpreters. Yes. And of course, thank you so much to all the team of UDUALCE, Marco Antonio, to the Latin American Chinese Network, and of course, to Xiaoyao Consulting, to Mr. Alonso Coronado, and to Mrs. Joy Bo. Thank you so much.